Yeah, so this unit standard, if you can see on the screen, and please interrupt as we go along. Now, this is called 116342. And I'm starting with this one because the previous one we did was, on performance management and strategic planning and so forth. But this one is on municipal income. And I look at the people in the audience, and you guys are in municipalities where, most of you, where credit control is working really well. But in most municipalities in our country, we find that credit control is really, really bad. In about 168 out of 258 municipalities, credit control is horrifically bad. And you can see that Eskom is struggling because municipalities are not paying them. Municipalities are collecting money from residents, but they're not paying Eskom. Municipalities are invoicing residents don't pay. Eventually, the bills become 108, you're 18 months outstanding, 180 days to 18 months outstanding, and then it becomes very difficult to collect. So credit control is what this unit standard is all about. And what makes this interesting is this is not a Dion version. Sometimes when you and I talk about credit control, you might say, Dion, you are living in Bloubergstrand. In Bloubergstrand, people are earning a lot of money, and that gives a perception of why Bloubergstrand people are paying. But this one is not about Dion and where I'm staying or where you're staying. This is about National Treasury that is giving guidance in terms of what needs to happen. All right. So secondly, if we go down, there's a table of contents. All of them work the same way. The next thing that I need to share with you is that this is a unit standard that is on an NQF6 level. What does it mean? There are two types of unit standards you and I are going to do. The one unit standard is a 116, and that is on an NQF6 level. Some of the unit standards, 6 of them, are on a 119 level, prescribed by LGCETA for this qualification, which is on an NQF5 level. So whenever you see the words 116, it's NQF6. All right. And this unit standard has 15 credits. Why is that relevant? Because at the end, you need to do a total of 166. To get this piece of paper, the certificate in municipal financial management from LGCETA, you must complete and be competent in 166 credits. All right. And this one is 15 of them. So in terms of weight, this is really an important one. So this is page number 6. I will always reference to the page and to the paragraphs. And that way, if you miss a session and you listen to that part of the video, then it will be easy for you to follow. I will record every session separately so that if you miss Zane, you're going to miss session 3 so that you don't have to go through the whole lecture or the whole recording. You can only go to the third one as I upload them. Okay, let's look at the learning outcomes here. If you look at paragraph 2.1 and specifically those 5 bullet points at the bottom, you can see that there are 7 basic policy principles when we talk about municipal income. The first one is revenue adequacy and certainty. Right now, the South African government is bankrupt. They don't have money. Now, when I say bankrupt, they can still operate and pay salaries, but they cannot fund public entities anymore, which means Eskom now needs to borrow money and they need to pay interest on that. The post office is in dire straits because the government cannot bail them out. SAA needs a private sector partner. Transnet needs private sector partners. And that means is that government is slowly but surely losing control over public entities simply because they cannot finance them anymore. In local authorities, if you ask yourself, why is sewage flowing down the street? It's simply because there's no money, there's not enough money to deliver the service of maintaining the sanitation works. So therefore, revenue adequacy and certainty is becoming important in government. In the private sector, if I don't have enough revenue, I physically need to close down. My company will be liquidated and I will end up bankrupt. And I won't be allowed to trade. And I think slowly but surely, this is happening to government as well, is that we will see what happens with the post office. Right now, the post office, in theory, should be closed down and everybody should be retrenched. Everybody should lose their job. The only way the post office can survive, the only way, is for government to provide them with a bailout. And that is in the private sector as well. As if I want to survive, I need to go to my bank to get them to bail me out. And if the bank says no, and I have no other alternative of funding, I need to close down. The second word is becoming more and more important, sustainability. You know, there was a time when there was a lot of money around. 20 years ago, government had a lot of money. You know, and slowly but surely we had state capture, and then we had wastage of money, and then we had COVID, and then we had all the fraud and corruption around COVID, and all those things that happen. So sustainability means now is that we simply don't have enough cash. And the only way to keep us sustainable is to increase, for example, VAT, or increase tariffs on fuel, or increase, personal tax and so forth, company tax and so forth. And now with Donald Trump, that yesterday published the increase in tariffs, South Africa is now being charged 30% tariffs on exports, and the American market is our second biggest export market. I think what we're going to find is that suddenly we won't be able to export to America because that will make our products too expensive. And in doing that, we will find a lot of job losses, which creates sustainability issues. Number three, it's about effective is okay, but efficient use of resources. Efficient means we need to get value for money. If we buy laptops at 2 million rand a laptop, or we build toilets at 1 million rand a piece, or we buy water, 500 ml water at 40 rand a bottle, that is what efficiency means. If you pay excessive prices, the money will run out. And I think this is our biggest challenge at the moment, is we have no mechanism to control what are reasonable prices. Accountability, transparency, and good governance, it's important, maybe not so important in this unit standard. Equity and redistribution is important in our country. Equitable means Black economic empowerment, but it also means gender equality. It also means redistribution, uplifting the poor. And this is probably the area where we're doing the worst of all, is that the gap between rich and poor is really growing over time. Development and investment is important, but you cannot do development, you cannot do investment if there's no revenue. Where a lot of municipalities are struggling, is they want to grow, but they stage microeconomic management. The biggest thing that we have at this point in time is we need to create jobs for the poor. And I find that it's becoming increasingly more challenging. I want to use an example. Elon Musk wants to bring Starlink to South Africa. And I think rightly so. The government is saying, you know what, in South Africa, you need to have at least 30% Black economic empowerment shares. And I support that mechanism. But when we take that mechanism and we align it to microeconomic management, I disagree with the government. Because I think what will happen is the richest people in the country will probably get the 30% shares. You will get some of those rich guys, maybe a Motsepe, that will say, you know what, I will benefit and I will buy 5% of those shares, and therefore I will have there will be Black economic empowerment. I believe what microeconomic management means is that if Elon Musk wants Black economic empowerment in South Africa to have 30% shares in Starlink, the qualification criteria must be something like that. If you receive a government pension, then you qualify. If you are on the social grant program of government where you get 500 bucks a month or 1,000 rand a month, you should be the beneficiary of the Starlink Black economic empowerment. That way, we will create jobs for the poor, and we'll create income streams for the poor that will make the gap between rich and poor smaller. But if all these opportunities keep on going to the rich, then we're simply not going to make any money. At the bottom of page 7, you find section 64. And section 64 is actually driving this whole chapter. It says here that accounting officers are legally responsible for the management of revenue of a municipality. Okay, legally responsible. Now, legally responsible means that if you fail to do it, theoretically now, if you fail to do it, you should be able to go to jail. But you see, there's no accountability against this legislation, and I just want you to understand that. Treasury says, as the accounting officer, you don't have a choice. You must bill people, you must read their meters, you must bill them, and you must make sure that you collect. And failing to do so can lead to a fine of 500,000 or 5 years in jail. But we don't get to that point, which means there's actually no incentive for municipal managers to really collect. Now, of course, this function is often delegated, not often, always delegated to the CFO. And the CFO is then supposed to take that job and make it work. The CFO's got some responsibilities. I want to make it slightly bigger here. So in this case, the CFO, they must implement the effective revenue collection system. And I can tell you, the people in the audience will actually, enjoy this. About 10 years ago, the USA gave me 24 municipalities where my job was to actually make sure that those municipalities have effective revenue collection systems. An effective revenue collection system is a very basic one. Correct meter readings for water, electricity, and so forth, correct invoicing, and then eventually chasing the payment of the debt. In those 24 municipalities, 21 of them had significant mistakes on the meter reading, which means the public would come back and say, you cannot charge me 7,000 Rand for electricity because I did not consume that much. So the problem was not even in collecting payment. The problem was that we didn't know how to read the meters. And the meters were giving us incorrect readings, incorrect invoices, and then eventually failure to pay. We spent 3 years in that program to just sort out revenue collection systems. And I think this is important. If you don't have a proper system, then your credit control is going to fail. You need to have a process at the back end. The revenue should be calculated on a monthly basis. I see in Cape Town, and I understand why. I actually support the process. In Cape Town, we have meter readings like every 4 months because it's an expensive process. And in the in-between months, we have a projection. It's almost like an estimation. And every time that there's a real calculation, they get it right, which means they are delivering an efficient service. Low cost, very, very accurate outputs. The challenge is that when you get to the adjustment is sometimes significant. One of the flats that I'm renting out, there are 2 people staying there, and on a normal basis, I would expect the electricity account to be around about 700 to 1,000 Rand. There's a small geyser. There are 2 people. They often shower in the gym. I've got a gas stove. There's not a lot of things drawing electricity. But with the adjustments month, suddenly the invoice went up to 4,000 Rand. Now, I think what that means is that if your monthly bill, the estimation is around about 700, and then you end up with 4,000, then the estimation is wrong. So we also need to get estimations correct. Municipal taxes and charges should be paid on a monthly basis. So invoices should go out every single month. And I think in most municipalities that are happening, and in most municipalities is going out online. Getting physical invoices are simply not happening anymore. 3414 talks about money should be promptly deposited. And this is for 2 reasons. Promptly deposit means we want people to pay EFTs, debit orders, and those sort of things because money is coming at the cheapest way into the bank account. But sometimes people pay at the municipality, and promptly deposit means you don't want to have cash lying around, because if cash is lying around, that is where it gets stolen. So it's important to get the money into the bank account. And in another course, we will look at the bank account and the rules around that bank account. Number 3415 is maybe not important in this course, but what it talks about is that there must be an accounting system. Now, accounting means debits and credits. And this first square bullet point that you see, that revenue should be recognized. I know most of you are not accountants in this audience, but recognizing revenue means, when does it actually belong to you? So when does the invoice, when you issue the invoice, when does it belong to you? And in revenue side, like for example in water, is when you have consumed. If people have consumed it, they owe you money. If people have used the electricity, they owe you money. So revenue recognition is becoming a big issue in municipalities. And that is why the most successful municipalities have moved to prepaid. Prepaid means I'm getting the cash, and then you use against the payment you have made. So the moment I get the cash, then the revenue is recognized. And even if you don't use the electricity, I'm keeping the cash. You might have seen that Eskom has, in the last 6 months, last part of last year, big issues around prepaid, where a lot of people were cheating and so forth. And that is why they organized the reprogramming or renumbering or recoding of all the prepaid meters. And they're not there yet, but I think what they've done is they've increased their revenue by about R1 billion by just making sure that people don't steal or electricity via the prepaid meters, or alternatively, that there's no scalums at the back end selling electricity on behalf of Eskom when they actually JIPO the prepaid meters. So revenue recognition is a big issue. 3416, there must be a system of internal control in terms of debtors and revenue. And you know, that system of internal control says, what do you do if a person doesn't pay you? So the PFMA, the MFMA is very strong. There must be a process to collect. A municipality in number 7 can charge interest on arrears, and they do. I've recently bought a property in Franskraal, which is in the Hermanus, the Oeverberg region. So it's a vacant plot. And then the week before I actually got the property registered in our name, you know, they implemented a water meter. And I mean, there's no electricity on the site yet. There's refuse services, but there's no dustbin yet. And of course, you know, there's no toilets on the premises yet, so there's no sanitation. But my monthly bill is 1,400 Rand, simply because the services are there. I'm not using it, but I'm paying 1,400 to have those services. I understand availability charges, but 1 month I think I paid 2 weeks late. I just forgot to pay the invoice. And this month, when I got my invoice, there's interest charge on it. And it's only 23 Rand. It's not a lot of money. But you know what? If I don't pay the 23 Rand, they will keep on charging me interest on interest. So I'm looking at Oeverberg and I'm wondering, why are they financially successful? And this is the reason. If you have services, you need to pay for that. If you don't pay for it, you know, we're going to charge you service fees. And if you don't eventually pay for it, your property is the security against your invoice. So that is what 3417 is all about, is how do we make sure we get our money? And then number 8 talks about all the revenue received by a municipality, all the revenue should be reconciled on a weekly basis. Now, if you're not an accountant, the principle of bank recons is probably not important to you. Maybe you don't even do it in your own life. But the reason why we do bank recons is many times people pay us, but they don't use the correct reference code, which means the money comes into a bank account, but it's not offset against the invoice, which means the invoice is still showing outstanding. It's a stupid little thing, but what we want to have is we don't want to have any transactions in what we call the cash expense account. If money is in the cash expense account, there's huge opportunity for fraud and corruption in a suspense account. And there is a future course when we look at that potential corruption. But you want cash to be allocated to the account against which it was paid. All right. So this is important. Paragraph 342, municipalities are encouraged to generate their own revenue. You know, when I work with municipalities that are struggling and I sit with municipal managers, I ask them, I say, why do you not want to collect? If you have no revenue source, how do you think you will fund your salaries? Now that national government is short of cash, what will happen to your municipality if you don't start running it like a business? And you know, the municipal managers think, they don't realize, they think the government, national government will always provide them with funding. And that cannot happen anymore. The Minister of Finance has clearly stated that the state has run out of cash, that we are over-borrowed now, and that he can no longer fund public entities and municipalities. The National Minister of Finance has gone and taken away money from struggling municipalities, conditional grants, taking it away from them and giving it to municipalities that are delivering services. So it's almost like the Minister of Finance has lost his interest in providing money where a municipality is not taking responsibility for their own. So if you sit in a municipality where there's a continuous debate about debt, write-off of debt, not charging interest and so forth, here is the question you need to put on the table. What will happen if we continue this way and National Treasury fails to provide us with more funding? What will happen to this institution? And I think it's going to close down. You know, next elections will only be after we finish this course. But here's my prediction. I think we will lose 30 municipalities before the next election. There will be 30 municipalities that will disappear. How will they disappear? They will be amalgamated with other small municipalities. A battling municipality will be swallowed up by a successful municipality. I want to give you an example, and with that, I don't mean it's going to happen. It's just an example in let's say, in the Western Cape. Kannaland municipality is struggling. For some reason, there's not enough revenue. You know, now if you don't have revenue, you can't fill vacant positions. If you don't fill vacant positions, you find that service delivery is going down. It actually makes sense that Kannaland is taken over by Oudtshoorn, because Oudtshoorn has got a way of collecting money, delivering services, improving the town, you know, building new houses, building new infrastructure. I think that's what's going to happen. It might not happen to Kannaland per se, but I think you're going to find in the Northwest, we're going to lose Lichtenburg and Koster. Those municipalities will disappear, and they'll be swallowed up by Tlokwe, Potchefstroom, or by Klerksdorp, city of Matlusana, simply because those entities have no right to exist. All right. So if we go to, you know, you can read through page, the next page by yourself. I'm only doing the critical areas. So if we look at page, let me just get the right page. If we look at this page, I need to get the page 10. You will see that municipal expenditure, you know, of course, you cannot spend money if you don't collect money. But in terms of municipal expenditure, there's a section 65 of the Municipal Act that tells the accounting officer, the municipal manager, what can he spend the money on and what are his responsibilities. So number one, you can see the municipality must have an effective system of expenditure, which means you can't pay 2 million rand for 2 laptops. I want to share this with you, and it's really critical. In Transnet, they bought drinking straws that you use to drink water out of a bottle or out of a Coke can. They bought these straws. The straws are costing 39 cents, and Transnet paid 29 rand for them. Recently, there was a court case where the court instructed the official, the Transnet official that signed the purchase order, to pay back the difference. So what does it mean? It means that in your municipality, if you pay excessive prices for goods and you sign the purchase order, the difference between what it should have been costing and what it's actually costing can be collected from you. And I think the SIU are all over people doing that now. I see continuous cases of excessive prices in the news and how people are now charged, you know, for ordering at excessive prices. That's what bullet point 3711 is all about. Make sure you pay the reasonable price, not the excessive price. Then the municipality must make sure there's an accounting system, you know, number 3712, and the accounting system will actually tell us where, you know, we spend the money and so forth. If we go to page 11, you know, they give us a definition of revenue and expenditure. I'm going to run through this because in a future course, we expand it a little bit more. Look at paragraph 411 on page 11. Revenue includes gross inflows of economic benefits or service potential. If you're not an accountant, this is a difficult thing. Let's look at the two words. Gross inflow of economic benefits. That is when people deposit cash in your bank. When your salary hits your bank account, that is a gross inflow of economic benefits. You can see the money. But you see, in a municipality, there's also service potential. If you don't use prepaid, but you provide electricity, and then you provide an invoice, that invoice is also revenue. You haven't received the cash yet, but it's potential cash based on your service potential. And 412 says, amounts collected on behalf of the principal. Now, this is the municipality. Sometimes you have agents, or maybe we outsource collection to a legal firm or to a collection agency. or maybe you are collecting money on behalf of another department. You know, whatever you collect, maybe traffic fines, that, okay, it's collected on behalf of somebody, which means eventually you need to pay it out. That is not regarding as revenue. Paragraph 413 says, revenue shall be measured at the fair value. Now, what is fair value? Fair value means there's a reasonable chance that you will collect it. If you send out an invoice to people that never pay, you cannot regard that as revenue. Aiden, I think this is something that maybe is something that you might understand. And Derek, yourself as well. If you work with budgets, every year we prepare our budget, and then we look at last year's expenditure, and we look at this budget, and we increase it a little bit, maybe by inflation, maybe by whatever. And this is the budget that we eventually send through to the CFO that finds its way to council for approval. The biggest mistake a municipality can make is to look at the budget without comparing it to the revenue. Okay, now let's stop there for a moment. If I compare my expenditure to revenue, why do I do that? I want to make sure that my revenue is more than my expenditure, because otherwise I'll be spending money that I don't have. But now I want to change that definition. I need to compare my expenditure to the revenue that I reasonably expect to collect. That's a different number. In the first example, revenue means all the cash plus all the invoices. But in my definition, revenue means all the cash plus the invoices that will be paid. Not all the invoices, only the invoices that will be paid. Aiden, Derek, and the other people, there's a term that is called unauthorized expenditure. And unauthorized expenditure means you are spending money that you don't have, or you're spending money that is not approved in the budget. Up to now, nobody is held accountable for that. The Minister of Finance said in his budget speech, if you spend money that is not approved in the budget, I'm coming for you. I will collect from you. That is why budgeting is so important today, and that your budget is based on cash plus revenue that you expect to collect. That means your budget will need to shrink a little bit. City of Cape Town has got a challenge because, you know, with the water drought we had after a while and after COVID, they are really battling to balance the books. Drakensberg, 5 years ago, income and expenditure was touch and go. You were on the brink of, you know, cash flow issues. But you have turned it around. The City of Cape Town is turning it around. You might have read that Tshwane municipality have revalued property in Tshwane. And it seems to me, if I listen to my friends staying there, that the valuations have gone up by 60%, somewhere between 30 and 60%. Now, I don't know why the valuations have gone up, but I know one thing, Tshwane is short of cash. And they need to find that cash somewhere. And the one way they decided to find that is from rates, not increasing service charges like water, electricity, and so forth, but increasing rates. Now, why would they increase rates? If you don't pay your rates, your property is under threat. Your property is backing up your rates. So maybe that is the method that they have thought about that. You need more revenue to actually justify your budget. So in future, also look at that. You can see in paragraph 414, what are the types of revenues? Okay, now most of you know, rendering of services, there are 4 services. Water, electricity, refuse removal, and sanitation. You can sell things. You can sell, here they talk about sales of goods. So prepaid meters. I see way back, a prepaid meter was given to you by the municipality. Now you need to buy it. A municipality can also sell wheelie bins. I think where I am, most people have 2 wheelie bins. The one wheelie bin is for rubbish, and then the second one they use is for recycling. It makes it easier to keep the recycled goods separately. But City of Cape Town only provides 1 wheelie bin, free of charge. If you want the second one, you need to buy it from them, sales of goods. Rates, which is the rates on your property, you know, what we call a property tax. And then service charges I've explained. Municipalities can also issue fines. Then, and they can collect from that. And then the biggest one is government grants. Congratulations to the Western Cape municipalities. And sorry, I'm not only referring to Western Cape here. Soon other provinces will join us in this group. But what the Western Cape is doing well is they are targeting is the word, government grants. What does it mean? Whenever the government is making funding available for something, let's say a road building, housing project, what the Western Cape municipalities are doing, they apply. And when they get the money, they spend the money. The guys from Drakenstein, you'll remember 4 or 5 years ago, Drakenstein underspent on their capital budget, and National Treasury took the money back. Said, if you don't spend the money, give it back. But since then, Drakenstein, whenever they get money from Treasury, they make sure they spend it. Why is that important? If you spend it, you improve infrastructure. A government grant frequently, most often, doesn't have to be paid back. So it's like getting financing for free. It's important that we see that as a big resource of funding. Municipalities can also have interest, royalty, and dividends. Not so important, not so relevant for the audience that we have now. But in the city of Cape Town, you know, they have a self-insurance fund, and the interest that they earn on that fund is vast. It's more than 100 million rand a year. So there can be interest that you can earn. But for municipalities maybe like Drakenstein and Swartland and Kannaland and Beaufort West and Oudtshoorn, those municipalities will not be in that region, but they, of course, there can be things like that. If we go down to expenditure, paragraph 424 at the bottom of page 12, there are 2 types of expenditure: capital and current. So capital, if I can explain it to you, is when you buy a house, you buy a car, you buy a laptop, you know, those type of things. You buy a flat, you invest in shares, you know, it's something where there's a value that you can hopefully in future sell for more money. Current expenditure is expenditure that we spend the money, it's not coming back. Eating out, putting fuel in the car, short-term insurance, paying salaries, and so forth. So there are 2 types of expenditure: capital and current. The current expenditure is normally funded by your revenue. So you need to collect the money to pay your current expenditure. And please remember that salaries are part of current expenditure. Take my word for this. And when we do the financial analysis in the future course, I will show you. Municipalities that are not collecting revenue, 50% of their positions are vacant. 50% of their positions are vacant. Why? There's no money to fill the vacant positions. So current expenditure is funded by your revenue. Capital expenditure can be funded through revenue that you've collected in the past, or it can be funded through loans by the bank, or it can be funded by government. And when it's funded by government, then you find you don't have to pay it back. This is amazing. But you see, the Minister of Finance have changed the rules now. I will only give you funding if you indicate to me that you can spend the money wisely. If you can't spend it wisely, I'm not going to give you more money. I need to put the money where we can grow the economy, and that becomes really important. 4243 is also relevant. Maybe not to Drakenstein, maybe not to Overberg or George, or maybe not to Midvaal. But for most municipalities, we buy things that becomes fruitless. We invest in the development of software that we never use. I saw yesterday there's in Gauteng, they developed, I think, 400 units, and the project was supposed to be launched in 2022. The project is still not finished. They haven't built it. There's no money to finish the number of houses. And it looks like a fancy project. It was in the news yesterday. And since then, all the doors, all the windows, all the electricity, all the wiring, all the taps, all the showers, all of that have been stripped out of the units. So that is a loss. We spend all this money, and it was 429 million or something, and that money is gone. And that is what a loss is all about. Okay. If we go down to Paragraph 5 on page 13, those 5.11 bullet points, they are important. You can see here that the section 64 and 65 of the MFMA puts a lot of responsibility on the municipal manager. And the municipal manager is also called the accounting officer of a municipality. A lot of responsibility. And look at the first one, overseeing the monitoring, evaluation, reporting of municipal budget and finances. You see, an accounting officer, his job is to oversee. He must make sure that this happens. And failing to do so, in theory, he should be held accountable. He should also make sure that there's municipal compliance with all these regulations that we're going to work through, create good administrative processes. And what that means is controls, policies, procedures that he needs to make available. And then number 4 is probably the most important one in terms of this chapter. Making sure there's enough funds available for implementation of the SDBIP. So what is the SDBIP? That is your plan for running the municipality for this year. If you are new to management, and if you are doing this course because you want to enter management, you want to apply for management positions, you might not know all the topics, but the SDBIP is called an operational plan. That's the plan for this year. And everybody that's in this audience, you have a job, things that you need to do this year that will get that SDBIP completed. And every month you need to do certain things to help the municipality to achieve the implementation of the SDBIP. Therefore, it is important that without funding, you cannot deliver. We talk about unfunded mandates, where we have responsibilities, but there's no funding. Or sometimes we have responsibilities where there's supposed to be funding, like fixing potholes. We are supposed to collect rates and taxes so that we can use some of that money to fill potholes. But because we don't collect, there's not enough money, and therefore potholes are increasing. All right. I think those are the important ones that I want to highlight there. On the next page, bullet point number 6, when we talk about the revenue management system, there's also about the word efficiently. You can see it in the second line in paragraph 6.1, efficiently. So efficiency is about making sure we get value for money. The opposite of efficiency is irregular. Irregular means fraud, or unauthorized. We spend money that we don't have, or fruitless. We spend money, but it's not working. We don't get the value out of it. We're building things that are never taken into operation. So you can see that there are lots of bullet points around expenditure. It must be authorized. What does it mean? Approved budget. That's how we authorize expenditure. We put a budget forward. It's aggregated by the CFO. He takes it to council. Council officially approves. And then that becomes the authority to spend. Number 2, expenditure should be supported by realistically forecasted revenue and cash collections. So if we overstate the revenue and cash collections, then it means our budget will be too high. Our budget will be bigger because we think we're going to collect more. But that's not happening. We are collecting less, and therefore the budget should be significantly smaller. The expenditure should be in line with the SDBIP. You cannot spend money outside the SDBIP, and that is why, on an annual basis, accounting officers will go away and have a bosberaad. So they will go away and plan the activities for the next year. In doing so, when they plan those activities, they will back it up with money. If they plan something, they will need to find the money to support that. Expenditures should be in line with the SDBIP. The rest of those bullet points, you can read through them by yourself. If we then go to paragraph 6.3, they talk about all sorts of goods and services that a municipality can provide in terms of the constitution. If you look at paragraph 6.3, the third line, it says the term indigent. So indigent means people don't earn as a household enough money for the basic necessities. So indigent actually means lacking the basic necessities of life. And therefore municipalities will provide free services free services or subsidized services to indigent people. And what are those type of services? And I think you know, and I know most of them. It's water, basic sanitation, which at this point in time is still allowing, you know, those outside toilets, cement toilets, that Julius Malema kicked over. You know, that is the minimum standard of sanitation. But of course, it increases in quality until you have a flushing toilet inside the house. Refuse removal in denser settlements, which will include wheelie bins and so forth. Environmental health, which is about clean water, you know, no sewage and refuse in the rivers and so forth. Basic energy, which is electricity. Healthcare, which is clinics. Housing, which is funded by government. And we sometimes forget, but it also includes food and clothing. Here is the challenge. You see, indigent means people get free. So if you don't collect from people that can pay, you don't have enough budget to provide for free. So it's important that you measure, invoice, and collect from people that can pay so that you can subsidize indigents. It's like a seesaw. If you don't collect anything, then free basic services is simply not possible. And I think sometimes we just forget to manage that. So that brings us to the end of the first chapter, which is really just a summary. I haven't taught you anything big. It's just things that you probably know already. So in the second chapter, here we look at the management of municipal revenue, but now look at the words sustainable manner. If you are already in a management position now, you already know that the word sustainability has become big now. Across the world, in the private sector, public sector, everything is about sustainability. Mervyn King in the King Reports talks about financial sustainability. Sustainability means we need to be around for a long time. So if we look at municipal revenue management in a sustainable manner, what does it mean? I need to make sure that I collect my revenue consistently so that the municipality can be around for a long time. And I think we are going to lose 30 municipalities because they don't get this right. Don't forget, during 1990, we already had 284 municipalities, of which already 26 have disappeared. Okay, so we're now down to 258. I think we're going to lose another 30, which means it will come down to 222. Fewer municipalities. The government will re-look at municipalities that are failing to deliver services and question their reason for existence. And it will all start with chapter 2. If you don't manage your revenue, you will affect your own sustainability. Okay. So if we go to page 19, it is important to understand the difference between a tax and a user charge. So the Constitution of our country defines the ability of local authority, municipalities like yourself, to charge certain taxes. Now, I need to explain this by comparing us to America, for example. So in America, if you're a state, you can have rates and taxes like you and I know it. And then you have income tax that you pay to the national government of America. And you know America has 50 states. So there's a tax that everybody in those 50 states need to pay towards the American revenue system. But then a state can also raise taxes. So for example, in our country, the Western Cape can decide that we want to improve the electricity network. And the Western Cape, in terms of American law, would have been able to charge us for that, a tax. That you and I pay 5 Rand tax per month, and that tax will be used to build a new nuclear power station that will make us free from power outages. But you see, in terms of our law in South Africa, we can't do that. In America, you can. In South Africa, no, you can't. So here, the Constitution says a municipality can impose taxes where property, and surcharges on fees or services provided on behalf of the municipality. So on property, they value your property and they charge you a tax on that property. Okay. The other one is Cape Town will buy electricity from Eskom and they will add a tariff. They will add a surcharge on that electricity. And that way they will use that surcharge to fund some of the growth. So they are allowed to do that. And sometimes, if national legislation allows them, paragraph B, they can also levy taxes like toll fees. If you go through the tunnel, between, Cape Town and Paarl, or between Paarl and Worcester, the moment you go through the tunnel, you pay that toll road fees of 50 Rand something. That is a type of tax. But the municipality cannot add any other tax. We cannot have customs duties. We cannot impose income tax. We cannot increase VAT. That is done on a national level. All right. So we are different from the rest of different from America, at least, in that our tax base is controlled by the Constitution. So if we look at the next page, if we look at user charges, a user charge is anything a municipality charge for the service that they give you. And you and I are very familiar with this. You go to Pick n Pay and you buy electricity, that's a user charge. You pay for your water, it's a user charge. You pay for your wheelie bin, it's a user charge. Right? So there are lots of user charges. Derek, Aiden, if you look at Saldanha, Saldanha has now added a 5th user charge. Saldanha is leasing out their pipes, their water pipes, to fiber companies. Saldanha decided that the water pipes are so big that fiber cables can actually run through those water pipes, and it's not necessary for fiber companies to dig trenches. So that leasing out of the water pipes, that monthly rental that fiber companies are paying them, that has become a 5th user charge. The MFMA actually encourages municipalities. It encourages you to actually find more user charges, to find other ways of collecting revenue. Okay. And I think it's difficult. Fiber, communication, that's one. You might have other services, but it's all aligned to people's ability to pay. So it's not a difficult one. Saldanha found this 5th one. And I would recommend that a lot of municipalities look at that. But if you look at taxes, taxes are mostly only one, and that is the tax we pay on property. And sometimes there's a tax we pay on having a business. If you have a mobile unit that are selling coffee, you need to pay a registration fee, which is also regarded as some sort of tax. Apart from that, a municipality has no other authority to charge you and me anything. Those are the 2 types of income that is flowing through. If we look at user charges at the bottom of page 21, user charges is difficult. And I can tell you in my business, and we in the consultancy space, education space, CPD space, and so forth, I have continuous arguments with my partners about the price that we charge people. Because people are often saying, we need to lift our price, or sometimes we need to drop our price. So it's not easy to find that price that people are willing to pay. So in City of Cape Town, water is really, really expensive. Since the drought, where they increased the water tariffs, they've actually never took the water tariffs down again. So most people react to water tariff increases, by using less. We cut our water use so that we don't pay more. So what am I talking about? You see, when you look at user charges, it's quantity times price. How many units are you using times the price gives you your invoice. So if the price is too high, we cut our quantity. And that's what City of Cape Town did. In a time of drought, they increased the price. And what did the community do? We took out our grass and we put in paving, because paving doesn't need water. We started getting yo-yo tanks so that we can collect some water to reduce the water usage from City of Cape Town. When Eskom puts up the tariffs, what do you and I do? We get solar power. We don't want to use quantity from Eskom because it's becoming too expensive. And I think in communities here in Drakenstein, like Val de Vie, those guys are doing their own refuse removal because that way they have control over the price. So you see that when the thing adequacy makes it very difficult. If you overcharge people, you will lose customers. You always need to find a balance. What is the right price to pay? The second one is people will only pay you when they get the service. Yesterday evening, I was at a braai and people are coming, they're staying in a town called Douglas. And they comment about how clean the Western Cape is, you know, and they talk about small little towns, even in the north. They talk about little towns like Citrusdal, well, Citrusdal is still in the Western Cape. They talk about Van Reinsdorp and Calvinia and how clean those towns are. And I asked them, so what about Douglas? They say in Douglas, there's no refuse removal. And I said, okay, but do you pay the municipality for refuse? Yes, we pay the refuse, but it's never happening. So my next question is, go to court. Go to court and ask the court to stop paying. Because you see, the municipality can only charge you if it complies with the benefit principle. If they charge you for refuse removal and then they then do not deliver on that, the court can instruct you or can authorize people to do it on the behalf of the municipality. And there are many court cases like that. There's no reason to pay the municipality if they don't deliver the service. And I think often we are just bullied as a community to say, well, there's 4 expenses you need to pay for, and they are on your invoice and pay. Remember, payment puts the obligation on the municipality to deliver. And if they fail to deliver, the question is, why should I pay? And I think this is really important. If we go to the next page, is administrative feasibility, and it's also important. Administrative feasibility means sometimes we can build a bloody difficult system. Right? We build a difficult process of collection. And we need to find the process that makes it easy. So I think one good idea is that you can buy electricity from Checkers. That's easy. You don't need to have an administrative department and tools and tellers and a whole function and people that need to collect cash from. The people go to Checkers every day. They go to Pick n Pay every day. So when they get to Pick n Pay, what is the easiest way to buy electricity? Just before you pay your food, can I also have 50 rands worth of prepaid electricity? See, that is administrative feasibility. It makes the cost of collection very cheap. The challenge is, if you still have this process where people come with invoices and they need to pay their invoices at the municipality, then you need to put resources there. You need to employ people. If many of your positions are vacant, then collection becomes an issue. You need to put computers there. You need to put systems there where you can capture the transactions. Administrative feasibility says, what is the most cost-effective way to get this done? So 3 principles. On the previous page, what is the right price, near adequacy at the bottom? Then the second one is there must be a benefit. Otherwise, it creates problems. Number 3, it must be administratively affordable. Don't overexpend. Don't make it difficult. And so forth. Politically acceptable on the next page. I think that is one that we are struggling with. I think, for example, if you go to Gauteng and you look at Soweto and the charge rates in Soweto is a politically acceptable issue because politicians made promises in terms of charges and the Soweto residents are keeping the politicians to those promises. And I even agree with that principle. I say, you know what, if this is what your leaders are promising you, then they need to stick to those promises, at least for this election term, you know. So I think there's politically acceptable is important. You can read the Bill Clinton book. Bill Clinton, when he was the governor of Arkansas, he increased rates and taxes because he wanted to fund better schools, better housing, better roads, better healthcare. And the people didn't like it. It was politically unacceptable. And then he lost out on his second term. And it took him a whole 4 years before he was re-elected again. The last one is allocative efficiency, which means that, if prices are set through providers competing in a service market to their customers, our prices must be competitive. It must be it must be reasonable. There must be a method behind the calculation. It cannot just be a thumb suck. Now, in my field, I'm a chartered accountant. I say we should have proper costing, allocative efficiency, proper costing. Understand what the drivers of cost are so that we can charge. MSCOA is a tool that we will learn about in the future. MSCOA is the tool to enable allocative efficiency. Then productive efficiency is really about making sure that it's competitive. Productivity means there's a balance between input and output. If people can buy electricity cheaper elsewhere, like for example through solar, then they won't buy it from Eskom. So as a municipality, we must have comparative, productive efficiency and so forth. I think this is where we're going to have our first break.